Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee, hosted by Kyrill, Lazarov, and Dario Nouri. CGC is a show where we invite business professionals to discuss industry topics and share experiences. Today we welcome our guest Ryan Bergmann. Ryan runs Immediate Group, a production company for the digital age, working with agencies, brands, and people to develop ideas and concepts that maximize viewer engagement. In addition to their commercial work, they have a mandate to support and collaborate with charities and nonprofit organizations whenever possible. We hope you enjoy our discussion, so let us start.
Did you get scared when they announced the new modified stage 2?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I wasn't going to restaurants inside. I didn't go to the gym. I wasn't bummed, like from that sense, like being not able to do that stuff anymore. But it's just scary to see the numbers go up, and obviously for production, I'm like terrified that we're gonna lock down again and not be able to shoot. So that's like a fear of mine. But yeah, I mean, I'm keeping safe. My team's keeping safe. So we're just trying to stay as positive as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when that happened on Friday, I called Kyrill. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yo, do you think our shoots next week are going to be canceled?
You know, he called in a panic. He's like, Kyrill, do we have anything next week? And I'm like, yeah, we do. Don't worry. We have small shoots. So it's not like a crew of 10, 20 people that we have to manage. So it's all good.
And it's only like the restaurants and gyms. And
how did you kind of feel like when we went from stage 2 to stage 3 with each one? Like, what was like some of the big changes that you started noticing, like for yourself with Immediate Group?
I mean, we didn't shoot anything until we were allowed to. Like we really kind of followed the rules. I was not coming into the office. Like I was working from home. Partially because I was scared, but also just wanted to follow the rules and be safe, and I'm not liable for anything that were to happen. But yeah, I mean, once stage 3 hit, we were allowed to shoot again, which was great, but it's not like it just went like go and we started shooting right away. It was like a really slow period, continuing conversations with clients, starting new conversations with clients, working through pre-pro. It wasn't until end of September, mid to end of September, that we actually shot anything. So it was slow, and like luckily we still did some post during lockdown, and we're doing some animated videos, some motion graphics stuff, so that kind of kept us afloat, kept us above water. And yeah, just I was like dying to get back on set. It was weird, like, and then I was like super nervous going back on set because I was like, shit, do I even like remember how to
Felt rusty
and manage people? Yeah, I like felt so rusty. But then once I got there and like felt the energy of the crew and everybody, it was like so awesome to be back at it. Obviously different with the masks and the distance and everything. Like it's so weird. It's so hard to adapt to and like accept as our new normal, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys felt the same way, being back on set and just working again, no matter what it is. Like some of the projects we started doing like are not these like breakthrough awesome portfolio pieces, but I don't care. Like I was super passionate and super like committed to whatever we were doing just because it'd been so long. So
yeah, like having been gone for like 5-6 months, not being able to do much, like
you're grateful.
You're grateful. Like the first few projects that come in, you're like, okay, I'm ready to do something. But like, what was like maybe like the first feeling that you got when you got on set? Like you mentioned you were a little bit nervous, obviously, but was there anything else that you were feeling, as you were kind of getting back into it?
I was just thinking like, this could very well be the last shoot for another 5 months, like that could happen. And so I need to like make the very best of this time with these people and this opportunity, because yeah, who knows when I'll be back on set again. Luckily I have been back on set since then, but kind of approaching each shoot like it could be the last one for a long time again. So
yeah. How big is your
team?
Your team? Yeah.
So like the salary team, like the immediate team, is 3 people. It's myself, Marsha, who is our producer, and Yuri, who is our editor and colorist. And so depending on the scale of the project, like it might be just us. The only other team member we would have to bring on is a DOP, obviously, and you know, camera team. But we've done stuff where it's like just me and a DP running around shooting, like natural, like doc style kind of stuff. But we scale up or down. So, you know, we've had crews as big as like 30, 40 people. Recently, it's been like no more than 10. We're trying to keep it less than 10, and clients have been very understanding and kind of supportive of that more nimble approach. And they're actually kind of looking for that more nimble approach for their own sake and safety. So we're actually pretty well positioned for this whole COVID world, because we're just used to not necessarily smaller scale, but just, yeah, more nimble, you know, wearing multiple hats, that kind of thing.
How have you seen the creative process get affected with COVID? Obviously, you know, before you would have the freedom to kind of come up with whatever ideas you wanted, but because obviously with COVID now, you know, you're restricted to, you know, like trying to be 6 feet apart, you know, you're trying not to interact with people. How has that affected like maybe the kind of creative choices that you've made in like in the briefs and the stories and the ideas that you were pitching?
To be honest, I mean, it hasn't really affected the creative too much, at least with the opportunities I've seen. Like, we haven't seen any boards or scripts where it's like big crowds and, you know, on location with tons of people running around. Everything has kind of, when it comes to us in script form or in brief form from the agency, they've already kind of taken into account what's possible right now. So in the creative phase, it hasn't really affected anything for us yet. But then obviously on set, you know, we're hiring COVID protocol managers and people just to kind of focus on just that on set. And they might be like, hey, this is what needs to happen for this to be safe, whether it's like lighting crew sets up but then leaves, you know, hair and makeup is happening outside, bathroom is down the street kind of thing. So there's like logistical precautions that are put in place. But knock on wood, it hasn't really affected the creative yet for us. That being said, like, there hasn't been any big opportunities where that might be the case, right? So
I've never heard of these COVID protocol people coming on set.
Yeah,
This is the first. Oh, really?
Yeah, this is a thing with a lot of the bigger sets. They have people that are just dedicated solely to making sure that everyone adheres to these protocols.
Oh, okay.
It's not necessarily needed as much when it's a small crew of like 4 people or something like that, or 5. But then if it's like once it gets to like up to like 10, 15, 20, then it gets a little bit stricter.
Have you been on set with the people like
No, I've just heard about it, and like as Ryan mentioned that like they've been doing it a lot. Like what is like the lowest crew number that you've had where you've had to bring in someone like that?
Yeah, like around 10 people. Like we keep it under 10, and one of those people would be like the COVID supervisor. So like it's a totally new role that's kind of just come up and has been created that we add on as like a line item just for our own safety, but also just for like the client safety, you know, for them to know that there's someone dedicated to that role and just kind of staying on top of everyone. And the good thing about it is when you have someone outside of like the film world doing this kind of thing, you know, it doesn't matter if it's the director or the client or the producer who's, you know, being unsafe. Doesn't matter who it is, this person will tell them what they need to do, like put them in their place, you know, be safe. So it's almost like they're at the top of the hierarchy in terms of roles.
Yeah.
They have you know, freedom, and they're encouraged to just stay on top of everybody, no matter who it is, make sure everyone's being safe, so that we can get the job done. And it's crazy, like we've been talking to people on like bigger sets, like Netflix shows and whatnot, and a lot of these shows are spending like millions of dollars every few weeks to have like a life labs thing set up on set so people can get like tested throughout the day. Like it's crazy the amount of money we're putting into this stuff because you have to. Like insurance companies aren't covering much, if anything, COVID related, and so to make sure that the company's covered and everybody's feeling safe, we're having to put lots of money and time into these safety precautions.
Where do you even find a person like that?
I mean, we kind of just asked around for references and people who have done it, but there's that Facebook group, like I need a fixer, Canada edition. You'll see a lot of asks on there for COVID people, and then you'll see a ton of responses, people who are doing it. So you can find them there as well.
And on the insurance then, do you let your insurance know, okay, I have a shoot coming up on this date, I'm bringing in a COVID person or whatnot, and then like, do you let them know, or like, how's that work?
Not really. I mean, I just renewed our insurance for the year about a month ago, and they've basically adjusted all of their fine print and all of their policy points to say that like this is not covering COVID. Like you need to take your own precautions to make sure that doesn't happen. So I mean, I don't think, to my knowledge, it exists where you can say to them, we're on set tomorrow, can we beef it up to make sure like if COVID were to happen, we'd be covered. Like I don't think that exists, at least with my insurance provider.
Okay, so I guess what happens if you do get COVID on set? Like...
Well, the thing is, like, I guess the reason they're doing that is because it's so easy to catch it. Like, insurance providers, at the end of the day, they want to make money. They don't want to have to be on the hook for something that is very likely to happen. And then, then they're going to be stuck paying like hundreds of thousands of dollars when only you paid them like what, $5,000?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's
I wonder what happens now. Like, okay, so you get...
Well, it's like with cars, like when you start getting into more accidents, they start to bump up your rate because they know that you're going to be prone.
It's just one accident in this case.
Well, but I mean, there's a lot of expenses when it goes into COVID related stuff. Yeah. I can imagine, right? Like
it must be a disaster. Like imagine if it happens, like your client would probably be like, I wonder if they would work with you again after that.
Who knows? I mean, who knows? I mean, I guess. But the thing is, you cannot also necessarily figure out how you got it, like where you got it,
who you got it from, yeah.
Too accurately. That's another thing. Like it's a lot of hearsay. It's like, I think we got it from this one because they tested positive, but was it really them? You can't prove it, and I don't know. Like there's probably so much legal that would go into that, right?
Yeah, I mean, one thing we're doing is like before the shoot, we're asking everyone to do the Safe Sets certificate program thing, which is a website. I forget what it's called, Safe Sets or something. We get them to fill out a questionnaire, which is like the same thing they ask you if you go into a store, like, have you been traveling? Have you been sick? Have you been around anyone? And they sign a form which basically says no to all those questions, or answers them correctly. So that at least covers us from on paper kind of legal perspective. And then after the shoot, we follow up a few days after and say, how are you feeling? Are you still okay? Is everything okay? And then and with the client too, like client, crew, everybody, we follow up and make sure everyone's feeling okay. Luckily, it's been okay for all the shoots we've done. And then we let everyone on the crew, client know that everyone's feeling fine, we're good, moving on kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah, we just recently started implementing something similar where we put together our own questionnaire and our own protocols package of like what everyone on set is expected to do and abide by, that we just send out to the client and the whole crew, and everyone needs to fill it out just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Because at this point, you need to like, it also shows everyone on set and the clients that you care. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who do a lot of these run and gun smaller shoots and don't think of this stuff as well. And, it's such a stark contrast.
Yeah, that's just peace of mind, right? Like, of course, it just makes everyone feel better, more confident when you have something in place, right? Like, it's, yeah, I mean, even just for me, like knowing that our crew at least says they're okay, I feel better already. Like the unknown is what's scary, right? If you don't know where someone's been or if they've been affected. So
Ryan, why don't you run us through your background, like how you got into the industry?
big question. Basically back in like, I think it was grade 7 or 8, my dad bought a cam for the family, like a mini DV camera for like family trips. And I just like, as soon as I figured out how to use it, was like getting so into making like these family movies on vacations. And then I know this is cliche, but like I was big into skateboarding and started, you know, shooting these skate videos. And I'm not very good at skateboarding, so I was filming more than actually skating, just like filming my friends. And then like even at school, like I wasn't great in school, wasn't too stoked on it, but I could get really invested in projects if I could like incorporate filming somehow. So whether it was like a book report or a science project, I would like figure out a way to make a video of that project. And then my teachers, for whatever reason, were like blown away by the fact that I was doing videos. Little did they know it's because I had no interest in the project if I could shoot it. And so I started getting like good marks with these video project submissions. And so that was kind of my way to get through high school. And then, you know, my dad is an engineer, my mom was in medicine. So there was definitely some convincing that needed to happen, you know, that I could actually make a career in filming and videography.
I think every filmmaker goes through that. They have to convince their parents, like, look, I'm not going to be a bum, I swear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so I went to UBC in Vancouver, the film program there, which was great. And that was kind of like, for my parents as well, like they wanted me to get a university degree, not just like a 1-year college private type thing. So went to UBC, got the degree. Like the program there was a lot of like theory and like film studies in addition to production. So, you know, I probably could have learned more going to college or just getting on set, but the degree was important to my parents and also to me. Like I wanted to go through the whole university experience, living in res, and, you know, having fun with that.
Did you make good connections through the school years?
Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna say. Like the program is one thing. You know, I learned what I did. It probably could have been better. It could have been a lot worse. But the people I met in that program, I'm still working with a lot of them today. Was so inspired by a lot of them. Some of them are big names now, working around the world, and still having that connection as like fellow alumni from that school is huge. Like my go-to DP is from UBC, and like I don't know what I would do if I didn't meet him, because I have to call him up on so many projects just because I'm so comfortable and I've been through so much with him. So yeah, like going to school just for the connections is worth it 100% in my eyes.
How many people would you say from your program actually stuck through with it, like after school ended?
That's a good question. I mean, I lost touch with quite a few of them. I would say like, so each year I think there was only 20 people in the program. Like it's a pretty small program. I would say 50% stuck with it, maybe more, maybe less, depending on the year. At least in some respect, right? Like some people are you know, working, you know, in like feature films and TV, you know, whether it's like as a casting agent or, you know, location scouter, like, or they're working on, you know, movies of the week, the Hallmark Channel stuff. Some people are, you know, directing, DOP. I mean, there's a lot of different paths people took, but I'd say about 50%, to my knowledge, are still working in the field.
I think it depends also on the programs that you go to, because we've talked to people to other people who have gone to different film schools, and they would say that only like 5%, 10% of the people actually stick with it, or actually were managed to find work.
So it's pretty good that 50% stuck through with it.
Yeah, I do you think that's pretty common, that like maybe like it really depends on the program, like how invested and how involved people are able to kind of continue or pursue the career?
Yeah, I mean, I think film school is what you make of it, right? Like if you're super invested in the craft and like you just know that's what you want to do, it doesn't matter what your professors are like or, you know, what the school is like. You're going to be in it. You're going to make a career out of it. I think some people like go in thinking that it's all just going to be kind of laid out for them. Like, okay, you get your degree. Here's where you get your first job. Here's when you like direct your first spot. Like, you know, it's a really tough industry, right? And it's all about who you know, and you know, and it's a grind. Like it's a super grind. So I think people go in maybe not being as prepared for that, and maybe they lose interest and they want something easier or just more consistent, more reliable, right? Like they want a paycheck, you know, every 2 weeks, as opposed to like hunting for your next gig. So I think maybe that's what discourages people afterwards.
It's definitely a tough career path, and a lot of people don't realize it. Like a lot of people always see the end goal. It's like, I'm gonna have an Oscar in my hand. You know, it doesn't obviously work like that. You have to have, like, I love what you mentioned, that you need to have a good attitude about it. You have to have a good approach to like what you make of the program, because if you are in that environment and you aren't able to make something of that, you're competing with people people like Dario and myself, who didn't go to film school but made something of it because we had the passion, we wanted to pursue this career ourselves. So we figured out a way to do it without film school. So you really, like you said, it really doesn't matter what program you go to or what path you take on, as long as you're passionate and you're willing to hustle. That is the only way you will find success.
I wonder how many of them choose to go, because there's obviously two paths you could do, right? Right after you finish, you can either do the union route and try to work within the film industry, or you go our route, which is the video production industry, which is basically like gig hunting in a way, right? Like you make of it what you make of it, right? It's just freelance, and then maybe you get a job at a corporate video production company. I wonder what the stats are for that.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset now. It's like it's a different ball game entirely, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I also think like my program at UBC was very focused on like feature films and TV and like government grants and, you know, distribution, all that kind of stuff, which, you know, is obviously still a big thing, but they didn't touch on like advertising and commercials and marketing, which is like a great place to go and start your career after school, where you can make a name for yourself, where you can build your portfolio, and where there's money. Like, you know, it's still hard, but there's lots of money in commercials and advertising. So, you know, when I graduated, I first started just doing like corporate videos, because that's where I knew where there was a need and where it was like, you know, there was money there. And, you know, just doing videos for family, friends who owned businesses, or friends who worked at companies where there was potentially a need for video. But it took a while to really learn and understand that, you know, commercials is a great place to go and a great place to create. So I wish, going back, like my profs would have had a course for like new media, you know, web series, getting on Netflix, that kind of thing. They were very focused on like, this is how you get a telefilm grant. This is how you make a film and like raise money. And it was almost like I wasn't super excited and inspired based on what they were telling me. I had to kind of learn outside on my own where I was going to go, what the path was going to be.
Well, one thing I've noticed about any university programs is that, or any university program, is that the content that is being taught there a lot of the time becomes really outdated within like a year or two. Like, what year did you go to UBC?
I graduated in 2013.
Okay. So, for example, that was a time when Netflix was also still relatively new, right? And a lot of these online digital platforms were still kind of emerging. Like I remember 2013 was the time when I really decided to start pursuing this industry as well. And I just kind of saw the digital side of things grow. YouTube was where everything was being focused on because it was
YouTube
growing
was
at
hot
that
at the time.
It was very hot. Like content was like people were on the hunt for new creatives, new talent, within that space. So it was really hard to kind of predict it. Maybe now there's probably so many different programs and courses, as you mentioned, where there is a focus on it because now it's been around for more than half a decade where people can really quantify it and figure out how to teach it. Like now there's so many tutorials on YouTube that teach a lot of things that weren't around like 5 years ago. When we were all starting out, we had to figure a lot of things out ourselves because nothing had been tested. Everyone was just trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. And now all the trial and error has kind of been taken out of the content world, and there's solutions to everything. It's like, you need to film something like this for this type of ad. Here's like 50 videos on how you can do it, right?
I love calling those videos tech support. So like camera reviews, how to light a scene. I always call those tech support.
Camera tech.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I wouldn't call myself technically savvy in any sense. And pretty much every project, like I still edit some stuff here and there, and pretty much every project working in Premiere, I have to Google something.
Oh yeah.
You too, eh?
Everyone does.
How do you add a time code?
Yeah, something will cut out, or like autosave didn't work, or I don't know. I think I'm cursed when it comes to technology. There's always weird shit that happens. But Yuri, who's sitting beside me, I call him my IT because I'm always like, Yuri, what do I do? Like Google's not answering my question. Like I'll look like in forums on Reddit, and like I can't find a solution to the problem I have. And it's like, oh my God, thank God you're here. Thank God people are posting these videos, because otherwise I'd be lost.
Oh my God, one time I had a project just disappear on me.
When was this?
2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And then I was panicking. I was literally just shitting my pants. I'm like, oh my God, like it was like 99% done. I just had to like add one last thing and then just export it. And it was just called Adobe. I'm like, yo, the guy answered. I'm like, yo, you gotta help me out. I'm in deep shit right now. The whole thing just disappears. Like, oh yeah, just do this and that, and it'll pop up again. I'm like, oh, it worked. Okay, thanks.
See, he figured out the problem on his own and didn't concern myself or the client, because I didn't even know this happened.
No, I told you about
it. You did?
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I don't remember this.
I was like, yo, you have no idea what happened this morning.
Yeah, it's scary. Like I try and buy like the best drives, the most reliable hard drives, and like I take like DIT and, you know, like file transfer like very seriously. Like I'm almost anal about it. I'm like, no one go into the room, like I'm transferring files. But shit still happens. Like last week our power went out and went right back on, and I went to open my project, and it was like kind of like what you said, Dario. It was just like not there, and like I had to dig into like the cache and like the autosave, whatever. Like I had to figure it out. Like the project file was just not there, and yeah, just like weird stuff like that. I'm like people say it's scary to work with film, right? Because you can like expose it and you lose it and everything, but like at least film is like a living, breathing thing that like as long as you take care of it, you know it's going to be there. Whereas like digital, like
zeros and ones,
it can just happen, right? Like you can have like a magnetic pulse on like the jewelry you're wearing, and it's fighting the signal of the dry. Like shit just happens.
Not to mention Adobe was so buggy for the longest time. In the past year, it's gone really, really good.
It's really good.
But oh my God, it's been a struggle working with that thing. It always, like, I mean, the stereotype is that it always crashes, right? Like every time, it's just like, all right, well, that's Adobe. But now it's actually pretty decent. It's pretty good.
The best is when you get that notification where it's like, a serious error has occurred. We are going to try and save your project, but no promises. It's, what the fuck?
It's like, don't give me hope. Don't do that. Don't give me hope. But it's like sometimes like it has also that error where it's like Adobe decides to take up too much RAM, even though you're rocking 32 gigabytes of it. You know, it's like nope, still not enough. Project crashes. Sorry, deal with it. But the one thing I found that made the programs crash less was using Adobe Media Encoder, and ever since we started using that,
it's so good.
it's been just the fastest and the most reliable because it doesn't mess up the Premiere file if something does happen, and that has been like a safety net.
And you could still work in the background like while it's rendering out and everything.
Yeah.
But editing aside and film school aside, I guess. Okay, so continue. You finished UBC.
Yeah. So I finished UBC. Like I said, I started doing a lot of like corporate videos, talking head type stuff. And like it was super hard. Like I was basically offering services for free just to like build my portfolio and get some projects under my belt. Did a lot of like just indie stuff. Like I would do, you know, a spec ad, or I'd do a little film about my dog or my brother, just like anything to build a portfolio. And then some bigger opportunities, like by luck, just kind of came up through people I knew and references. You know, like I went all out for every project, even if it was just a talking head video with no budget. Like I still went 110% into it because you never know who that person knows or who's going to see that video. And it's, you know, a very slow kind of like 5-year snowball effect. And then, you know, I started working with bigger agencies and bigger gigs, and I was sick and tired of wearing the producer hat and the director hat, because one always kind of suffers. Either the creative suffers or the budget suffers. And so,
That's good.
you know, we had enough work coming down the pipe that I could bring on a full-time producer. So brought on Marsha, who's amazing. She came from the not-for-profit space event, dealing with like big brand partnerships there. And we had been in touch for a while. I had done some volunteer work for some of the charities she worked at. And we just had like a great kind of vibe connection going. So brought her on full time, which has made it so much easier for me to focus on creative, focus on directing, and kind of let her handle the, you know, client communications and business development, all that kind of stuff. And then Yuri and I, so he's our colorist and editor. I went to school with him at UBC as well. He's been involved since the beginning, with other, you know, shooting stuff for me, coloring, editing stuff for me. But then he kind of became a part of the company full time, and, you know, we became the three of us. And yeah, it's been about 1.5 years, almost 2 years now, with like the full team approach. And it's going pretty well. And we got the office space here in the Junction, which pre-COVID was amazing because we could host supervised color sessions and edit sessions, and could prep cameras here, have meetings here. Now it's not being used very much because of COVID and everyone's working from home. We don't do supervised anymore. It's just like Zoom calls, where we bring the client in on Zoom to see where the edit's at or where the color's at. But yeah, it's been a fun ride, and, you know, I'm happy with where we're at right now, but there's still so much room to grow. And I still have months where it's like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, am I doing what I want to do? Am I doing the projects I want to work on? And like, it's like constantly kind of up and down in terms of like confidence and morale. But you just kind of keep on trucking, and like really always making time for like projects you're passionate about, even if there's no budget at all. Just making sure you have time for those, because that just continuously reminds you of why you're doing what you're doing and why you love what you're doing. And so yeah, I mean, in quarantine, when we couldn't shoot, we worked on a ton of passion project stuff. We were doing work for a bunch of charities, just like giving back wherever we could.
Which charities were you working with, or are you still working with?
A bunch. So Special Olympics, Rethink Breast Cancer, Ontario Nature, Fred Victor Society, Jack.org, UHN Hospital Network. Like we Marcia came from that world. So we really just reached out to everyone and said, hey, like, do you need help during this time? We would love to support in any video content or even photo needs that you might have. And so that was a way to keep busy, to feel good about the work that we were doing, and just like stay creative and keep working on stuff. So.
And how did you choose those charities?
Oh, they knew the people.
Oh, you knew the people that were working there?
Yeah, but I mean, Marcia had some contacts there, but we were also just trying to diversify, right? So like, okay, nature, we'll give back to the environment. Special Olympics, we'll give back to people with an intellectual disability. UHN Hospital Network, like we want to like be a part of fighting for the cure for COVID. It's for their campaign to raise money for COVID research. So just trying to like cast a wide net on various causes, and like I said, just to feel good about like doing something for various organizations.
Yeah, that's something we started in September as well. So we started this personal program called, what we called it 5 for 5, where we donate 5% from every project towards 5 charities. And again, we did what you did as well. We chose it based on like different factors, right? So we have Canadian Blood Services, Youth Without Shelter, Nature Conservancy Canada, Second Harvest, and what's the other one?
No.
Oh, Red Cross.
Red Cross, yeah.
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 And then for Canadian Blood Services, we also went in and we donated blood as well. But I was actually planning on getting in touch with them to see if we could do video work for them too.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear that you're doing that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome because they all have the need for it. They don't always have the budget for it, but you know, that's another thing. We did reach out to charities where we thought they would have existing material, whether it's B-roll from past events or photography from past campaigns, where there would be some kind of asset existing that we could re-edit, repurpose.
Oh, I see.
For a new campaign. And it wasn't always the case. Like we had to turn to film supply and stock video sites a few times just to have content to work with. But it was a fun exercise. Like, okay, budget is very small, if not like zero budget. How can we create something for them with text or B-roll, found footage, blah, blah, blah. It was really fun. It actually kind of felt like film school again, like just working with like minimal resources to try and create something that would support and help them.
Like the one thing I really love about our industry is having the limitations really kind of helps even spark creativity that you don't even know that you have, right? Like sometimes if you have like a blank check of what you can do, you're like, oh no, we'll just do everything. Let's rent all the cameras, all the lenses, all the crew, all the lights, like everything that you need.
That's a great problem to have, though.
It's a good problem to have. But what I'm saying is like, it kind of like how you're talking about it is like, it takes you back to when you first started. It's like you were very limited in your resources. So you had to really get creative about creating very interesting content with what little resources you had. And sometimes that's also kind of like what made you the filmmaker that you were, was being able to solve those problems in your own unique way. Because sometimes, like if it's like a talking head video shoot, in a studio, very simple, like they're very parallel, like in terms of how the product would probably come out, like no matter what company or what person does it. Obviously everyone has their own little spins that makes it creative, but when it comes down to those crunch time videos, with certain budgets and certain resources, like that's where everyone's like inner creativity, I feel, comes out.
Well, if you have a blank check, you could always hire someone that's really creative.
you know what I mean. You know what I mean, right? It's about your spin.
What clients give you a blank check? Because you need to introduce me to those clients.
I kind of want to know this too.
I know, right? Well, I'm just saying.
Is it Disney? Are you talking to Disney? He's working on the next Marvel project. That's why.
I got secrets.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had that luxury where there wasn't some kind of crunch, like, whether it's we can only have this size crew, or we can only use this camera, or we only have one day, we only have budget for one day, or however many days, like and you're right though, like I think it really forces you to be efficient and kind of maximize what you have, the tools you have, the knowledge you have, and just creative is something that can be there regardless of budget, right? Like, obviously there's value in the creative and you want to make sure you're being compensated fairly, but you can always be super creative and make up for production value with creative, I think.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about the content, like back when, like the digital revolution was coming, that's when, you started to measure companies, based on their capabilities, what gear they had,
4K.
8K now, whereas, but now because there's such an abundance of production companies and creators and people who can put
low barriers to entry,
the content and the creative have become a new focus. It's like almost as if it's like switched back. It's like now, if the content isn't good, doesn't matter if you shot it in 8K. If it's garbage, it doesn't matter if it's 8K. It's still 8K of garbage, Like if it's like a really good, solid, even 720 HD video or 1080p video, then there's still more value in that, because that's what people want to share and see.
And Instagram and social media apps, like 4K doesn't really translate well.
TikTok.
Anyway. Even YouTube, like you won't get 4K. I max it goes to like 2K, right? So it's
it goes 4K.
Does it? Oh well, no. You know what? If you're on bandwidth, you don't want to go there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I like shooting 4K and 8K and stuff because it gives a lot of room for Yuri to work in color. Like there's just a lot of information there to push in different directions. So if there's budget, it is nice to have that opportunity to work on the grade like that. But we shot a project a few weeks ago with the C200, which I've had for a while, and like it never really got used because we're always just like renting the Alexa or whatever. But budget was small on this project, so we were like, okay, we got to use the C200 here. We rented some CFast cards and shot with the raw capability, and honestly it looks amazing. Like
how's it compare to the Alexa?
I mean, like I said, I'm not a big technical guy. It's 10-bit or 12-bit as opposed to whatever the Alexa is, but it, like in post, Yuri with color was able to do a lot with the raw function. So I mean, we're going to use that. We're going to do that again because it saves us a ton of money. Clients super happy. Like, they didn't care really what camera we use as long as it looked good. And so we did some tests and, some lighting tests and lens tests. And like, it was a really good camera for the job. So yeah.
Yeah, no, the C200s are great.
We're shooting this with C200s.
We're shooting right now with C200s as well. And even the like 8-bit on it like is a pretty good quality like codec to use, because I find like at the end of the day, like you got to also nail it in camera. If you do that, you're already going to be coming out with a lot of great footage. And the 4K raw, like we've used it a handful of times, and I've talked to DPs who use it all the time, and they swear by it as well. So it just goes to show it doesn't matter if you have a $50,000 camera, $100,000 camera, or
$12,000.
Now this is a $5,000 probably camera used.
Oh, used.
So okay. It's all a matter of like how you use it, the content, and like the quality of the creative, and then if that is good, no one's gonna notice the little pixel difference between the Alexa and the C200 if the creative is really good, right? Like people are just gonna be like, that was a great video, I was entertained.
Totally. Yeah, and I feel like you get so caught up in the gear sometimes, right? Like, we want to shoot 8K and we want to get these lenses, and you're thinking so much about like all the gear, and then you forget about the creative and the story and like what you're actually doing. And it can take away from it sometimes. Whereas if you go in with like this basic camera, the C200, or even like a DSLR, and you're that's all you have to work with, and so you're focusing all of your efforts on the creative and the story, and it can sometimes turn out better than if you were to be using top of the line everything.
It sets you free in a way, right? When that it's like, okay, this is all I have to work with. Great. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Whereas, it's like, okay, I need to rent the Alexa. I need to do equipment check at the rental house. I have to go pick it up. I have to go drop it off. That's a whole process, right? Just to secure the equipment needs. And then, as you mentioned, that takes potentially a lot of the time away from the actual creative and and like other things that you should also focus on, right?
You know what it reminds me of? It's kind of like when you watch like new wave films and you see how they're made, and they're all like, they're not technically well made films, right? But they're so crazy and out there, and so interesting because they did focus most of their attention on just creating the story, that it makes up for it. You don't even think about the fact that, oh, you know,
Yeah.
like for that shot, there's like a little like bump in the shot. You're like, I don't care. Like the story's so engaging. Forget that, right?
And it really helps. It really helps with the need for content to be turned out really quickly. There's been like a demand with a lot of clients these days where, you know, once it's shot, you know, they need it right away, you know, and so sometimes you have to find like a good balance of like, let me get the best possible quality, but also the most efficient at the same time, right?
That's gonna be a tricky balance going forward.
Well, I mean, it's still a tricky balance now. Like, do you find that there's like a lot of quick turnarounds that clients need, like with a lot of the projects you do, or is it kind of they give you a little bit of flexibility?
Depends. Like usually if it's an agency job, there's like a very set schedule. There's a deadline for when it needs to go to trafficking and whatever. So usually with the bigger jobs, yeah, it's a tight turnaround. It's all very well mapped out, and we have to fit within that. We also do a lot of stuff direct to client, and in those cases, they might have like a website launch or something where they want to premiere this video. But in most cases, it's just they kind of lean on us, like we'd love to have this as soon as possible kind of thing. And in those cases, we'll put together a work back that basically says, okay, this is what needs to happen to have it done for end of October. A lot of it is relying on your feedback time and you know, decisions and sign off. So it really depends, but I would say in most cases it's quick turnaround. Like there's some kind of pressure deliverable time that needs to happen. I don't know. Do you guys feel the same way with your stuff, or?
Yeah, we're going through the exact same stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's some projects where we have the time to do it, but then there's others where, like we have one coming up where they used one company and they didn't like it, so they asked us to take care of it, and that deadline is very
Well,
like,
the deadline was
the deadline
October
is
4th.
Yeah, it's done. It's past due. So
like that was the due date for the project. They weren't happy when they like the project deliverable was delivered to them late. They weren't happy, and the day they got it, they just reached out to us.
Yeah.
It's like, we know you guys can take care of this. Like take
care of it.
Take care of it. I know it's a little last minute. We obviously need it ASAP, but let us know how long you think it will take, right? Like obviously in situations like that, you want to try to help them as much as you can, because you know that's such a tricky situation to be in as well, when you know like there's been another factors that weren't your own. You're already coming in with like a deadline which was due a week ago, and you're like, oh, now is really crunch time to figure this out, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually like the pressure. Like I'm a huge procrastinator. So if I'm dictating the schedule, I'll like just keep pushing it off and whatever. But if they're like, it needs to be done by this date, I will just like work to that. And it's just nice to know that you have a deadline and you're working towards that. Yeah. And I mean, the same went for like projects and stuff back in school and film school and high school. Like I was just such a procrastinator. So yeah, deadlines are a good thing, I would say, in production.
Ryan, you mentioned actually, can you know what? Can you describe the point you're at right now with your business? Because you touched upon it a little bit earlier.
Man, that's also a tough question. So we're working with agencies a fair amount, probably more than 50%. We're working direct to client as well, on a lot of stuff. We're working with a lot of charities, which is great. We're working on a short film passion project, which we've raised some money for, which we're really excited about. We are working on a series, a TV series, which we pitched to Netflix, didn't go through, unfortunately, but we're still trucking along with that. Like I really want to get into content, long form content, because it's just awesome and everyone needs that right now. Like if we go into lockdown again, you know, brands might not be putting out as many ads, but people will just be craving new content. So I think that's like a really good place to be from a business perspective, is just creating content that you can own, right? Like that our company can own, and we just create value and assets for the company, as opposed to just creating something for someone else, for a brand or whatever. And like, don't get me wrong, I love commercials. I love the challenge of like delivering on a brand ask, and you know, I love advertising. I've always have, but I just want to try and like diversify as much as possible, in case, you know, lockdown does happen again. We still have multiple avenues to produce work. And then
Tell me more about the short film. What's it about?
So the short film, so this is kind of a long story, but I'll keep it as short as possible. So I have a brother with an intellectual disability. That's why I've been so involved in Special Olympics and supporting those types of charities. Marcia Doucette has a sister with intellectual disabilities. And so that was really what bonded us and had us connect so well. I've always wanted to create content or a short film or whatever it is about my brother. During lockdown, we had all this time. Marcia was like, just write a script, let's produce something with your brother. And because of COVID, I wasn't comfortable seeing him because he's, you know, high risk, shooting anything live action. But then I looked at Marcia's sister, who is an artist, does a lot of drawings and art. That's kind of her way of communicating, is she'll draw as opposed to speaking. And so we just started doing interviews with her, chatting with her, learning about her approach. And I said, why not create an animated film about her and her way of communicating, and kind of using it as an outlook on the world and what communication is and how it can be in the form of art or language or whatever. So we brought on Good Form, who is an amazing, super talented animation company, motion graphic company in the city. They were super inspired by the idea, inspired by Rachel. So they came on board. We got a brilliant writer on board to write a script based on the conversations we had with Rachel. And so we got a script locked. We're now in animation. We're chatting with various people to obviously help fund the film, but also help get it out there once it's done. We've got some exciting stuff happening there, which I won't say just yet because we want to kind of have it all finalized before we officially launch the campaign for the film. But again, like having these passion projects in the works at all times is super important for me to stay positive and stay motivated to do the work that we do. Because yeah, it's hard sometimes, right? Like you need to constantly feel inspired and you need to have that reminder of what you're doing. So that project for me and our entire team has really kept the morale high, kept us excited about what we're doing. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of where we're.
Yeah, you definitely answered. That's actually really good. Like I really like that. Where can we? Where's the? Is it a Kickstarter you're doing for it, or?
We haven't done the Kickstarter route. We might do that. We've just kind of turned to private donors and talking to brands that might be interested in being a part of it. But once the film's done, we're going to do a proper screening once we can at a cool venue. You know, kind of get press and media there and all that. And we're going to have a website for it. And we're also launching a kind of like social enterprise to get people with special needs involved in art, right? Like there's programming for sports, like Special Olympics is a great example of getting people with an intellectual disability involved in sports. We want to create something that gets them involved in art. So the film is kind of going to be multi-purpose. It's the film, which will kind of exist on its own, but it'll also be a launch for this program that will kind of continue on down the road.
No, that's great.
Okay.
Like, let us know once like things start to develop. Like, we definitely want to follow this and just kind of see how it goes. You know, it's really cool that you brought that up though, because one thing that I've noticed that a lot of creators, what differentiates them, I find, is incorporating a lot of themselves and their experiences into their work. You know, it's one thing to pick up a camera and then try to start imitating what other people do, but I feel like to really become a true creative, you have to take from your own experiences and have it flourish in your work. And that's something that Dario and I have been like really trying to sit down and focus on, during this COVID time. It's like, how can we draw from our own lives, and start incorporating it into our work? And, do you feel that there is a huge potential in that, like where do you feel like a lot of your personal experiences have really kind of shown into your work rather than, like versus what you've seen out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to find that personal connection. You have to, like, for every project, ask yourself, okay, like, what am I bringing to the table that others couldn't? Whether it's your experience or people or just like something about the project that really inspires you that you can draw from personal experiences. I think you really have to have that, even if it's a corporate video talking head. Like, it's really hard to fake your excitement for a project, right? Like, you have to find something that's gonna get you inspired and help you deliver a good video, right? So I mean, it's a luxury to only work on stuff that really inspires you and really fulfills you creatively.
Yeah.
But I do believe that with every project, you can find something about it that you have a personal connection with, or something that just really inspires you and will get you excited about the project. Even if it's like, you're maybe not interested in the subject matter, but it's an opportunity to use a specific camera or work with a DOP that you've been really wanting to work with, or just work with people that you really want to meet. Like we did the videos for TEDx Toronto for 4 years, which, it's an event, and we had to do live streaming and like all this event stuff, which is not my favorite thing to do, just because events are super high risk and pressure and all that. But meeting all these incredible speakers and these incredible people who were speaking at this TEDx event was like so inspiring. And that just really kept us coming back each year and donating our time, because I just learned and grew so much as a person each time I met these amazing people.
Oh yeah, like when we
TEDx stuff is always awesome.
TEDx projects, there's always opportunities to really get connected with different people, especially learn. Exactly. And I think 2019 or like was it late 2018, early 2019, we did the inaugural one for TEDx Don Mills, but we were mostly handling just the creative aspect for it, and just meeting and talking to a lot of the people and the speakers that would be there were very inspirational. It kind of like helped set the tone for the kind of content that we were going to create for them. And we were set to do it again this year, but obviously it was COVID hit, and so everything just kind of stopped and got pushed until further notice. So I think, like as you mentioned, every project you do, you have to take something away from it or figure out a way to grow from it, however small. Even as you said, if it's just a talking head, maybe use that as an opportunity to bring on like a certain creative. Like we have a project next week, for example, where for the first time we're actually bringing together 2 other creatives that we've wanted to work with for a while. We call it like our dream team in a way, and like we want to just kind of see, like, finally how will everything turn out if we all play our part. So even if it's just a simple thing, you have to take something away from it.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
What about in the future? Because now we've kind of figured out what point you're at right now. Where do you see yourself being? I don't want to say 5 years from now, but whatever timeline
soon
that is
rather.
for you, right? Future timeline you got going on for you. Where do you want your company to be in the future?
I mean, the company, I would like to have a TV series under our belt. I'd like to I try and produce a short film every year, so I want to keep doing that and maybe produce a feature film. I mean, that would be awesome. So get some more narrative stuff under our belt. I want to keep, working with charities and not just charities, but even brands and for ads, like working on just really meaningful content. Whether it's the new like Sick Kids campaign or CAMH or whatever, like just meaningful content that does more than it's just a cool video to watch. I want it, like, as a director, I want to direct bigger, better spots, and not necessarily bigger in budget, but just like bigger campaigns, right? Be involved in more of that. And I mean, I like the fact that we're small and we're nimble. Like if I had the opportunity to hire like another 10 people and expand, like I'm not sure I would do it, because I really like having this small, nimble team. We all know each other so well, and people like working with us because they know everyone on the team, and they know that, you know, there's not going to be lost information because there's multiple layers of managers and whatever, right? Like I think we can continue at the size we're at for at least the next 5-10 years and make a great go at it with the stuff I just mentioned. Yeah.
Do you feel like there might be some need to bring in maybe like one or two other people to fulfill maybe certain roles and skill sets that you perhaps don't have at the moment?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, right now we scale up and down depending on the project. So in most cases, we're expanding the team per project, bringing on another producer, bringing on another writer, blah, blah, blah. I would love to have the luxury of bringing on someone else full time to support on multiple projects, but it's tough, right? When our industry is so up and down to have big overhead. Like we have pretty low overhead, but when you don't have a shoot in a month, like you're shit in your drawers, right? Like it's scary. So yeah, I mean, if COVID goes away and we continue to grow and the work keeps coming in, absolutely. Like we would potentially bring on a few more people. But yeah, I find it's always like either you're scared because there's not enough work, or you're scared that there's too much work and you can't handle it. You're never just like coasting and like feeling good, at least in my case.
Yeah, you're always worrying about whether you're not having, like you said, not enough, or it's like too much that it's like, oh man, can I get enough people on board to do this? Because it's always those busy times when you're trying to find the people that you want to typically work with. They're also busy, so you also get that panic at times. It's like, damn, I can't bring on the people I typically work with sometimes, you know, because they're also busy. But I think it is all it's hard to find a balance. But I feel like, you know, as you go on year after year, you kind of figure out that kind of like good medium as it comes. But like you said, it really varies.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I think that's the end.
I think we covered quite a bit, and I like that we kind of started focusing a little bit more on like some of the creative projects and passion projects, and a lot of like charitable organizations that you got involved with. You know, I feel like a lot of people in our business, you know, like we're always concerned so much with, you know, like making sure that, you know, we're able to do what we can, you know, trying to find that next gig. But, you know, sometimes
you got to give back to the community.
You got to give back to the community in some way, shape, or form, whether it's, you know, donations or, you know, donating your time to produce some great quality content. You know, do what you can, you know, like that's basically the moral of it.
Yeah, totally. And like people will recognize that work that you do, right? Like if they see you're constantly shooting and working on passion projects, like it shows a lot about your character and your passion for what you do. So yeah, I would say just like always try and be shooting, always try and be working on something that inspires you, because you never know who's going to see it, who it's going to really connect with. You know, it might be the CEO of X agency who's like, oh my God, like I also support that charity. I really want to work with you on the next brand ad. Like you never know what it's going to lead to, and you'll feel super good about it when you're supporting others. So it's kind of win-win all around. Obviously you still need to pay the bills and, you know, stay above water, which is tricky sometimes, to have that balance of paid work and unpaid work. But like I said, I do think you always need something that you're working on, that you're passionate about, that isn't about money, that'll keep you going.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people that I've spoken with who do a lot of passion projects, they told me that almost every paid opportunity or new client that they have gotten has come directly from those passion projects that they did, because someone saw it or recommended it to someone and they got inspired and they wanted to pick up the phone and call them to bring them on board. So like people think, you know, passion projects, there's no money in it, you know, like maybe, you know, you're not going to get anything maybe directly from it. but there are opportunities that can come from it, and it's just a matter of, you know, how much time and effort you put into it, right?
Reminds me of the what's that Rush Hour? Did you hear the Rush Hour story?
No.
Who's the black actor in that? What's his name?
Chris Tucker.
So apparently Chris Tucker had to do some type of video, and at the time he didn't have money, right? So he met up with Brett Ratner, and the guy's like, "Fine, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'll help you out, right?"
Yeah.
And then when Chris Tucker then got the role for Rush Hour, the original director dropped out last minute, and he remembered Brett Ratner, who helped him out that one time.
Oh,
so
wow.
he's like, "Hold on, I got a guy." And then Brett Ratner directed Rush Hour.
Yeah, you
It's
never,
crazy.
you never know, like, where when you extend a helping hand, you know, like, maybe sometimes people won't remember it, but it's worth it enough sometimes that, you know, that one opportunity might come up, you know, where it's like, you know what, I'm glad I've been putting myself out there, you know, whether if it was for money or not, you know, you got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's partially why we're also doing this podcast, because we found that, you know, I think this is also, people need content, especially now during COVID, and there is these types of conversations you don't really hear too much, you know, between different production companies, you know, like sharing their experiences, and I feel like this is like something that some people need to listen or hear about. I mean, like these conversations, for example, about film school, right? You know, a lot of people are either you have to do it or you should never do it, you know, and you gotta hear people's backgrounds, why there is, like, everyone's situation is different, and you just have to basically take what you can and apply it to you based on what you hear.
Yeah, totally.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on the show. You know, like, it's been a great discussion, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys, and thanks for doing this show. I mean, I think it's really cool. Like you said, like, it's just nice to chat with other people, hear other people's experiences, because, you know, it can be lonely sometimes, right? Like when you're running your own company and you're so focused on what you're doing, it's nice to just hear what others are doing, and you can kind of pull from those experiences and those ideas and use them in your own. So thank you for producing the show, and I look forward to continuing to follow along. I've been watching them as you put them up.
Oh,
Okay, that's awesome.
We're happy that people are enjoying it. You know,
So you must be the 6th subscriber, huh?
You know what? I actually might not even subscribe to it, so I'll make sure I do.
Okay, there we go. Now he's number 7.
False idol.
7. Yeah.
No, we appreciate the support, and, you know, like, again, keep us posted with whatever passion projects you have. Like, we would love to check it out as they come out.
For sure. I will do that.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care.
See ya.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Creatives Grab Coffee podcast.
You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Let us know if there are any topics you would like for us to cover in future episodes.
You can reach out to us at creativesgrabcoffee@gmail.com.